Hello and welcome to another episode of Timeout, the Basketball England podcast. Our latest guest will be a familiar name among British basketball fans, as Joe Pinchin joins us on the pod. Joe is well known for his brilliant work over the years with Leicester Riders and other projects, but he's heading for the NBA as he joins up with Chicago Bulls. Basketball England's Ian Cawthorne grabbed a chat with Joe before he headed stateside.
And now, the starting lineup for your Chicago Bulls.
So, welcome, Joe. I'll start off by saying congratulations. For those that don't know, Joe's just been appointed by the Chicago Bulls as their manager of digital content. Tell us more about it. How did it come about?
Thanks, Ian. Well, it came about much like any job. Application process. Had been to Chicago to visit, and they were, gracious enough to let me spend a few days there, sort of learning from them and speaking to their staff and seeing what they do a few years ago. So I had sort of a personal relationship with a few of the staff that, once the job came up, sort of, got speaking to them about what it would be like and whether I was a good fit, whether they thought I was a good fit, and spend time applying and things. So, application process, as you can imagine, from sort of a large organisation and a global brand, like really due diligence recruitment process and a ton of interviews and conversations. I actually got the job back in September but obviously being a British guy wanting to work in the US, had to sort of start working through a visa process, which came to fruition over the Christmas holidays, and then finally got approved last week. So been a little while in the making, but really thankful that they were happy to wait, because there was I'm sure in their minds there was definite that if they hired American, they would add an extra member of staff for the first half of the season and put some extra pressure on people. So very, very grateful for that, and head out this weekend.
How difficult was it to I mean, you're going to have to completely uproot yourself and head over there. How difficult a decision was that for you?
Not too difficult, just because of the nature of the role and the people there. Like I said, I know some of the staff, so I think if this was another team and a different city, I've visited Chicago a few times. We have some former players that are based in those areas. I visited them there, and then it's a nice city, so I'd gone for sort of a few days holiday and things in the past. So it's a strange one, because as much as it seems a very distant world in terms of the NBA and how they operate and all these things, it's quite a comfortable move, I guess, in the sense that I know a lot about the people. Well, I say a lot more than I would sort of going in blind to a new job. Everyone's been absolutely tremendous throughout the process, as I said already. And I know the city a little bit. I've been to the offices. I've been to Bulls games in the past. So not super difficult in terms of no real sort of nerves and things with the organisation. Just excitement for the role. Obviously, leaving a program that I've been involved with for 12 and a bit seasons, in some way, shape or form, is a strange undergoing, but I think it's sort of time to move on. I think I've always spoken about wanting to go and work in a country where basketball is a little bit more prevalent, and obviously nowhere better to do that than jump straight into the NBA and see how things are done there.
It's fantastic news, and I'm sure everyone that's in the UK that's followed the stuff you've done is right behind you. Let's start right at the beginning as well. Where did you get into basketball? How did it all start for you?
So first experiences of basketball were I'm from Wiltshire, a town called Trowbridge, and first experience of basketball was with just like any kid, I guess, like primary school age. Went along to a program at the time called Trowbridge Hawks. I'm not sure I think they're Wiltshire something now. There's a guy called Vince Marion. Super welcoming, super comfortable sessions as a kid. Thoroughly enjoyed them. My younger brother, who was always about the same height as me, even though he's a couple of years younger, would always come along. So it was something we did together and enjoyed. And I then moved to Lincolnshire, and there was a lot less basketball on offer. So sort of, continued to be like wanting to play and casually play, but didn't play for a team until sort of later years of secondary school and sixth form. And started sort of playing, I guess, a little bit more, I'd say seriously, wanting to get better and train more properly. I was still probably wouldn't say properly, but more properly, as any 15, 16, 17-year-old kid starts to think about, could I get somewhere, whether it's UK or US, to scholarship, or what's the opportunities to play after leaving sixth form, and kind of going through that process there.
And then obviously, you finished playing, or you decided that it perhaps wasn't going to go where you wanted it to go. How did you transition from on-court to off-court and what you're doing now?
Yeah, so after Sixth Form, continued to play at Loughborough. Spent a little bit of time in the summer in the US, sort of trying to pursue different, scholarship options and things like that, as a lot of guys do. Nothing sort of came about. So yeah, back to had Loughborough University as a backup, which is pretty solid option as a backup. Although at the time, basketball program sort of wasn't as established as some of the other places in the UK. Yeah, so arrived and sort of was immediately, I guess, and by no fault, it's just sort of disgruntled by the state of the game here. And I think almost immediately, whilst I was playing, started spending a lot of time alongside studying off the court, pouring into trying to make the program better in any way. To start with, that was to try and get us out of debt with different student unions here, and then building things forward so that we had better staffing and more full-time coaching opportunities for people as we've gone on in the years. And yeah, just sort of poured in time as a student, was self-aware that enough I wasn't going to go and make a lot of money playing basketball, 2 terrible ankles, and was never great at the game in terms of a player. So wanted to make sure I used the playing opportunities to meet people, to network, to go and experience things, which I did, and super grateful for both in the UK and overseas. And then as I was coming towards the end of my studies, started to really double down on understanding what it takes to run a club, understanding the sport development side of trying to push a team forward, and started looking at options within Loughborough to move that forward. Spent my last season sort of playing properly with the Nottingham Hood in one of their first seasons, just to sort of, I guess, live out that final sort of be able to play and not have to think too much about all the off-court stuff, which was good fun. And then, yeah, sort of dived into an off-court role. Took a job with Loughborough University in their facilities and working their events, which was a lot of fun. And then alongside that was sort of double down. So I'd work primarily on shift patterns most of the year. So I'd be able to work from sort of 6 till 2 as a duty manager or assistant in one of the facilities here, and then literally at 2 o'clock go across to the sport offices and work from 2 until practice, trying to sort of move the program forward as a volunteer to start with. Poured in a lot of time, similar to a lot of people's journeys in basketball in this country. And then the relationship with the Riders kind of came about around that same time. So, formed a partnership between Loughborough and the Riders to really push things forward. And the university were in a place that they couldn't finance. And were open and honest about that, which was great. And they kind of gave us the flexibility to work in a different way, which is what we've tried to do since then, and in terms of forming partnerships in the locality, in terms of forming partnerships obviously with the Riders, with Loughborough College, with Chalmers College, trying to sort of really develop that 16 to 22, 23-year-old program for players, and as well as sort of young coaches and young professionals in the sport. And I think that sort of, because of that, and because it was new, and because it was really sort of the bare bones of a program at that time, and we put some meat on that since then. We still feel we've got a long way to go, but because of that, as a young professional, for me, it allowed me to develop, it allowed me to test things, it allowed me to do things that I kind of wanted to do that hadn't been done maybe before in our program, and copy some things from other programs and go and learn from the likes of Barkin. And Lloyd took some great amount of time to share what they did down there. Same with Matt Johnson at Reading. Really, great sort of day or so down with him, sort of learning what they do. So yeah, just tried to sort of go around the country, steal ideas from people and what they were doing, and play my part in our program here as it grew, and we added staff members going forwards. And then over those years, from an operational standpoint, it was then delivering community programs, because that allowed sort of additional funding for roles and delivering things that would grow the game in Leicestershire, and national projects like Project 3-on-3. And then from that, kind of drifting back into trying to be a bit more, trying to push on my own skill set and our brand and our visual image online for the Riders and for Loughborough and for Charnwood, which obviously is what I'm going on to continue to do now. And I think, again, same thing, it was because of where we were at the time. Me standing on the baseline with an iPhone was an upgrade sort of thing. So, I didn't know how to use DSLR. I didn't know how to use Photoshop extensively as I do now. I didn't know how to edit video properly. Like, I was, just with an iPhone really starting to learn things there. And then it kind of gave me that freedom to, that's a slight upgrade. Let's try and do something more. Okay, let's get a baseline handy cam similar to what Sam Neater does with Hootsuite stuff. And then it was okay, let's explore DSLR so we get some better photography and develop that. And then it just sort of snowballed from there into what you see now.
It's a really interesting journey. You talk about the ways that you've developed over time. If you were to speak to an NBL club who doesn't really have that presence, and they see the things that you do and think, oh wow, what sort of steps would you give them in the first instance to try and get themselves on the map a little bit?
I think that with today's age, you're in a position where you can, depending on if we're talking digitally, it's an industry where you can very quickly see the final product that is being put out by teams, right? So compare it to somewhat like coaching, you might see a team and how a coach is interacting with that team, but you rarely openly see the processes involved in that. And whilst you maybe not see the process in digital, you can quickly see the output and kind of work backwards and reverse engineer the processes quite quickly through free resources like YouTube and just Googling how to do things. And that's really like all the digital stuff you see from the Riders. For me, is self-taught. It's getting home from work and spending 3 hours figuring out how to start with. It was to figure out how to Photoshop on a score to a photo, and now it's spending that same time to make a player disappear and pop back up on a different part of the court or whatever it might be, and different programs. So I think if I were starting over as an NBL team now, I think I would go and try and speak to the likes of clubs that are doing things well. Bristol do a great job with their digital presence through their relationship with Bristol Sport and the work Joel does down there. And I think the nature of sport means people are very open and happy to share for the most part. So start to ask questions, start to learn from others that are doing things that you aspire to do. In the same way that I've had great conversations over the years with media managers and digital managers from NCAA Division 1 teams that, we've had players come over for, we've sent players to, and had great discussions with them about what they do and how they do it, learned tons from that. And then if you're starting ground zero, then you're in a great place to learn as you go. So I think if you start doing something, you'll start to discover what works and what's easy to do within the time limits of whether it's a volunteer role or a paid role, whatever those time limits that everyone in this country is going to have and resource limits they're going to have in terms of equipment. Ground zero in terms of this is a perfect place to start and perfect blank canvas to test new things and test what is going to work for them. I think there's easy things that can be done with the quality of iPhones nowadays. You see even huge internet accounts that are standing on baselines with iPhones because it's the quickest way to get clips out if someone does something a little crazy that's going to go viral. So I think most people have some of the tools to at least get started, and then I think from there they'll learn as they go on what is going to work for them. Is it they want to do more photography? Is it they want to do more video? They need to improve their graphics side of things. And there's great software out there now that doesn't require you to have a great skill set. So we use Mason, which is a graphics product, to be able to kind of update templates with scores and quotes and things like that. And most of the stuff that you see go out can be done on that very quickly and easily, without any kind of knowledge of Photoshop, etc., and at pretty minimal cost. So I think it's an ideal opportunity for clubs to be taking steps forward in their digital brand because there's so many free or cheap resources out there. And I think it can make a big difference in terms of things like attendance at games and the money in from that, whether that's ticket sales or even things like tuck shop sales, or whether it's further down the line merchandise sales, things like that, whether it's recruitment, whether it's transition and showcasing talent for exit routes for your players or coaches or staff. I think there's a lot that can be done.
I think it's fair to say that pretty much every UK basketball fan has come across your work in some shape or form, be it photography, videography, graphics, written content. I noticed you had some podcasts a few years back. Do you have a favourite that you like to do? Is there anything that you particularly like to turn your hand to?
I like video right now the most. The why behind that is because I think it's the most in detail way to tell a story, to convey a message. So I think the offset of that is the time it takes to do it and do it well. So yeah, love video when I have the time to really kind of get something that is produced to a level that I like, and I love consuming that kind of high-end produced video content from teams overseas and some Premier League teams and things in this country. So yeah, love video in terms of speed, love the ability to quickly capture moments in terms of photography. And I think that as much as things drift more and more with video, that there's a place for photography in terms of having that still image to put up on a wall or print out into a program or a loose paper. I think there's a great power in that as well. So like those two more so than the designing side of things and the written side of things. But for me, it's always been an enjoyment to test and do all things and learn new things across multiple medias. And I've played with augmented reality more recently and what's possible with that, with again free resources and a little bit of training that you can do online, like is pretty crazy. I think there's some exciting stuff that hopefully we'll see coming up on that side of things. I think it's just that the most enjoyment I get, I think, is more the learning the new skill and being able to implement that. And I think that also leads to almost the most reaction and the most sort of engagement, because it's normally stuff that people don't see as often. So yeah, I think it's that ability to learn new skills and just develop as you go with digital that is the sort of the most fun part.
You've seen a lot of really high-profile players on their way to bigger things. How do you feel about your involvement and giving those players a platform and the work you can do to help them get to the places that they're going?
Anytime you can help someone, like just, whether it's basketball or life, is obviously a positive thing. I think with today's age, I don't feel that any of those players doing anything is credit to me. Like if you're working hard and doing what you need to do as a player now, you're going to be found. Like you're going to be able to progress onto things you want to do. So thoroughly enjoy it. If the work I do plays a small part in that, then tremendous. But very much feel that it's on the players and the programs they're coming from to be able to put in that work and develop how they need to and do the right things that are going to move them on.
You've been to China, Paris, you've done various FIBA work all over Europe. Have you got any highlights for places that you've been or places that you love to go?
All those places you mentioned were tremendous. Doing stuff with Sam at K54 for Hootsuite is great vibe there. Personally feel it's shifted a little bit with them. They now charge for tickets. It used to be a free event and a bit more of a free-for-all for people to try and get in. Yeah, so love that, other than the very fair skin, so sunburn was very real at those events. Time in China with Benny and Li Ning and Dwayne Wade, CJ McCollum was tremendous in terms of seeing how they operate as very high-level professional athletes trying to hone their craft over the summer, whilst also kind of detailing all the media and absolutely crazy appearances they do. Yeah, so love that. Love China. Love very, very different culture to the UK, and huge language barrier, huge cultural difference. So I think any time you can immerse yourself in a new culture, I think is awesome. Hootsuite All-Star Classic, I think is an amazing event every summer. It's already kind of loosely marked on my calendar, waiting for Sam and Hootsuite to nail the date and get that out so I can try and look at booking flights back for that. So I think that's somewhere that it's managed to capture the energy of youth basketball in this country and put together a very elite and high-level showcase of those athletes, whilst maintaining the kind of soul of youth sport and Brixton Rec and all those things. So, yeah, really love that. I love my work with Den Camp over the years with Steve and Lowell and the coaching staff there. There's not many things, and I've been fortunate to try to say yes to as many opportunities as they've come, and the Riders have been accommodating to allow me to do some things in the summer after putting in some crazy hours in the season. So just been fortunate that each time I've said yes to something and done something new or gone somewhere new, that the opportunity has been enlightening and enhancing for me personally in some way, and hopefully I've added value for whatever company or people I've been working for in a good way, and they've had me back a lot of times, so hopefully they've enjoyed my work. But selfishly for me, I've always taken a lot out of those experiences. The FIBA 3x3 stuff, especially in the last couple of years, has been great just to work as part of a bigger team. With the Riders, we have great partners in 5 or 6 and great people that help around the club with different content on game days and things. But to work sort of as part of a wider team across multiple continents when covering events was enhancing in a great way to really see how they operate and the resources they use and how they get things done on a bigger scale. So I don't think there's any sort of standout highlights. The success we've had in our program and being able to capture that over the years, and again play some small part in that growth and the winning side of things and the success of players being able to move on to things that they wanted to do and things like that has been super enhancing for me and really rewarding over the years. I think both for players and staff, and especially in more recent years, we've been able to have staff come into our program and spend a little time and then move on to things that they were aspiring to do and new experiences. So yeah, just I think all of it. I've had a great journey so far in basketball, and painting a nice pretty picture absolutely is a brutal grind, as anyone I'm sure listening to this podcast knows. But I think it's super rewarding to be able to do things that, work in a sport that you love, do things that are going to help people sometimes, help yourself sometimes, enjoy it. It's all been a positive experience so far, mate.
Talking about awesome places you've been, you must have met some pretty cool people as well. I know there's always the odd person that tends to stick in the mind that you think, oh, that was really cool. I'm glad I got to chat to that person. Is there anyone on your list that you've really enjoyed?
Yes, but for different reasons. To see the work that Lual does and get to know him on a bit more of a personal basis, and see kind of his journey and the work that he's doing and how he dealt with some tough situations from his playing stance, and how he sort of was giving back to the game has been super cool. Especially the obviously like Den Camp UK's great experience for the top 50, but the Den Camp in the US for players with South Sudanese heritage was really, really insightful, just to learn, I guess, a new culture and learn their experiences of people that have come from a refugee background and really trying to do things well, and Lou giving back to that community. It was a super special camp, and some of those campers, especially like kept in touch. So I really, really enjoyed that. Obviously been fortunate to, interact with a number of super high level players and coaches and things like that over the years, which has been great. But people wise, as the guys around our program here have been awesome to spend every day with, and it doesn't feel like work. So as much as conversation with LeBron or Kevin Durant at All-Star is a cool 30-second snippet, for me it's always been more about the day-to-day grind and who you're in the trenches with that sticks in my mind more when you ask something like that. So it's the guys around our program that are trying to do things to push us on and putting in the hours and sitting opposite me in the office late at night and things like that I value, I guess, a little bit more.
Talk about the awesome journey that you've had, and you're still quite a young man as well. What do you do when you're not around basketball? There must be something for Joe Pinchin when you're not doing that grind.
Honestly, mate, it's been life for as long as I can remember now since studying. So, yeah, not a ton to tell in terms of away from basketball life side of things. Enjoy the game. We've got a program that is extensive enough now that there is 1,001 things on a to-do list, and I cannot remember a day that I've got to the end of it and thought, oh yeah, I've managed to accomplish everything, and go home and watch some Netflix. Like there's always something else to be able to do, and I think that we try to keep that mindset too, even when we are on top of things in terms of the workload. There's always something else you can add to it. There's always something else you can, that extra bit of video, that extra bit of media content, learning a new skill to be able to do something in the future, like whatever that is, there's always a way to grow. And I think that has I've allowed that myself to kind of be consumed by that kind of lifestyle over the last few years, especially. And I think that, the results are shown in the uplift in our content and the opportunities that's sort of presented to me personally as well.
As a person that's gone through your journey, and obviously you're off to something new and exciting, what would you say to the youth of today that want to work in sport, have that interest? What would you say to them?
Make sure you love it, as it's a grind. I actually work with Loughborough's volunteer programs and a few different lecture programs on here to develop sort of different skill sets and assets that they're doing. And I think that the biggest thing that we're seeing is almost impatience to try and jump into jobs. I think someone that's kind of gone through it, you start to understand that there's people that are going to have like 10 to 15 years plus experience on you, and realistically, whilst there is more and more jobs, as more and more companies value digital and creative going forwards, someone has that job. And I think if you're 16, 17 years old, you've got to understand that your work output is got to be better than theirs if you want that job. And I think that it already is very cutthroat, and I think it's a trendy thing to be involved in. And you're seeing a lot of people get involved, a ton of talented people too. I think it's pushing the industry forwards. I love being able to connect with people over social media and hear what they're doing and how their journey's going and things. And I try and connect with a ton of people that I'm aspiring to grow into. So I think for me, the biggest thing is just that patience. I think you've got to spend a lot of time to really hone your craft before someone's willing to pay you to do it. I think that I've paid some of those dues. I still feel like I have a ton to learn, but think if you're going into it fresh and you're new to it and you're aspiring to do it in the future, I think you've got to understand that it's not a short journey. It's similar to being a player or any sort of profession. You've got to put that, whatever you believe in, but 10,000 hours or however you approach it, there's a bunch of time to be put in to develop a skill set and a craft and an understanding to be able to add value to organisations, to businesses, to charities, however you're working going forwards.
I think that's really valuable advice. You're obviously off to a fantastic next step in your journey, in your career. What's the future hold for Joe? Where are you going to go? Is there anything else you're really looking to achieve?
Right now, I'm looking to achieve an apartment so that I have somewhere to live in said new opportunity. Yeah, honestly, I think I've not thought ahead of the Bulls side of things. I think that the BBL versus the NBA is a very different environment, and I think that in the most parts in a positive way. But I think there's going to be equal hurdles and frustrations that are going to have to be dealt with. So I'm interested to see, what day-to-day life is like working in the NBA. You see a lot of job mobility. You see a lot of people in and out of the industry and moving on. So I'm sure that, and I've seen it firsthand, like the league is glamorous and the NBA is a glamorous basketball league with some incredible teams, but the lifestyle of working in digital is not glamorous. It's the same long hours I've been putting in here. It's the same grind and thirst for knowledge and thirst for trying to move things forward and what's next, and constantly trying to innovate and do things that people haven't seen before and things like that. So I think right now, my focus is solely on that and really getting to Chicago and getting to know the incredibly talented staff that they have, trying to help them in any way I can and add value to the organization moving forwards, and just really soak in NBA life on and off the court and see where things go. I think, like I said earlier, it's a perfect next step in my career. Well, probably giant leap rather than next step, but very fortunate to it. I think I just look forward to soaking in that for the foreseeable future with some good people.
Well, I, for one, wish you every success. I know that everyone else at Basketball England does. You'll certainly be missed when I'm down at my NBL events, not seeing you sat on the baseline trying to capture every shot that you can. And this half an hour's flown by, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, mate. I'll be following from overseas. You don't spend over a decade involved and lose interest overnight. So, yeah, I'll be watching how things go forward. I'm excited for our program and the sport going forward. I think there's still a ton of room for growth, and there's some positive things that have been implemented in the last few years that hopefully come to fruition and move the sport forward in the way that everyone wants it to.
Thanks for listening to the Timeout podcast. Why not give us a like and a follow on our Basketball England SoundCloud channel, and let us know what you think or who you would like to hear from in a future episode.